Joe Kent's resignation over the war in Iran is exposing an internal crack between some members of the GOP and Donald Trump's MAGA coalition, a crack that is getting harder to paper over as the conflict enters week 3 and the White House tries to defend its America First stance. Joining us, Washington Post foreign affairs columnist and MS Now contributor David Ignatius and former CIA director and MS Now senior national security and intelligence analyst John Brennan. Okay, so exposing the rift in the party, no more foreign wars versus the folks that really wanted to go after Iran and really want to topple regimes that are not friendly to America around the globe, Venezuela, maybe even Cuba next. Try to help me understand how we got into this position, David.
Well, we got in the position first with the president's sense of the overwhelming power of the U.S. military. I think Venezuela was just exhilarating, gave him a feeling that a writer for The Atlantic, Tom Nichols, described as victory disease, this feeling he could do anything, and led him to override some warnings from General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and others, that this wasn't going to be easy, that Iran had the ability to close the Strait of Hormuz, that this wasn't a walkover. Trump, I think, in this exhilaration of American power, blew through the warnings, didn't have a clear idea of how he would end the war, and now we're at a moment described this morning in the Washington Post. The war is metastasizing. It's becoming deeper, more difficult, more threatening to the world economy, obviously more difficult politically for Trump.
Is it going to be a forever war, David?
So as I watch this, Katie, I'm reminded, as John Brennan may be, of what I saw as a boy during the escalation in Vietnam. That was an adversary that President Johnson, President Kennedy before him, the Viet Cong, they regarded them as people dressed in what looked like pajamas to them, running around lightly armed. How could they not topple the Viet Cong in Vietnam? I couldn't imagine it. And then you add more troops, another 100,000, another 100,000 after that. You just get on this ladder of escalation. And I think that's the dilemma Trump is facing right now. The war isn't working out the way he wants. What does he do about it? Does he add more troops? Does he escalate? We've seen this before. It's excruciating for an administration.
John, what say you?
I say that David and I are old enough to remember past failures of American military activities, whether it be in Vietnam or Iraq, and including Afghanistan. This is an ugly mess. And I think it's only going to get worse, especially if we decide to increase the U.S. military investment. As we see, the Marines are heading in that to that area, the Marine Expeditionary Unit. And if we decide to take Kharg Island or try to control the literal part of the Strait of Hormuz on Iran's side, I think that's going to be a disaster. There are, I think, 1,100 miles of coastline that Iran has, and the thought that we are going to be able to suppress any type of hostile fire from that area is, again, I think, insane. And so, what I would like to see is some type of off-ramp. There is no good off-ramp that is going to justify the initiation of this war. It was a senseless, needless war. And nothing is going to, no off-ramp is going to make Donald Trump look good. But if, in fact, the United States and Israel say that they're going to stop bombing, midnight tonight or whatever, and to see whether or not Iran is going to respond, if their command and control from Tehran is really going to be able to stop a lot of the Iranian shots coming across the Gulf, and see whether or not we can do something that's going to open up the strait and get back on some type of course that is not just going to lead to further escalation. Because I agree. I think this war and the conflict can go on forever if we're going to continue to try to just double down and just pursue a strategy that's going to remind us very much of Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan.
As you know, you should, before you do this, think of all possibilities and game out what to do with those possibilities before you decide to go in. So if you are advocating right now just a cessation of bombing to see where Iran goes with it, whether they stop the hostilities, whether they open up the Strait of Hormuz, let me ask you about what if they don't? What if they get more hardline? What if they continue some sort of offensive, or they continue saber rattling, and then start building up a nuclear arsenal again, enriching uranium, building the centrifuges, et cetera. What should the United States do? We're already in there. What should we do?
Again, I think what we should do is pursue any course that's going to bring the hostilities down. People are dying. The massive destruction and devastation is taking place inside of Iran and Gulf in terms of whether it be the energy areas or the supplies that are coming out of the Gulf. I just can't even imagine what it's going to take to try to get Iran back on its feet. And so I don't think Iran is just going to continue to initiate. They are responding. Their backs are against the wall. It is a matter of survival for them. It's not surprising that they're looking at the pressure points. And the pressure points are the energy supplies coming out of the Gulf. It's the Gulf states where they can hit with their missiles and drones or whatever. And so I think that if we take the initiative to say, listen, we have accomplished all we want to right now, and just to see whether or not that's going to bring the temperature down, as opposed to just going to the next step, putting Marines on Iranian soil along the Gulf, we're going to lose a lot more soldiers needlessly, and we shouldn't be going down that path.
Every time we have a conversation, it seems more remarkable that we are in this mess to begin with. John, I want to ask you one question that's off topic, but it has to do with you. James Comey subpoenaed, according to MS Now reporting, as part of a grand conspiracy that's being investigated against Donald Trump. There is talk that you might be also involved in this. What have you heard? Have you been subpoenaed? What do you make of this?
I think you mean against Jim Comey, because Jim Comey, myself, and others, have received subpoenas from the Department of Justice about some grand conspiracy or the work that we did while we were in government, and we're going back basically 10 years or so. So, and David can speak to the retribution campaign that Donald Trump has been on. But this, I think, is an effort to try to harass and to try to ruin people professionally, personally, financially, and so on. And so it's very, very sad that, our government, our Department of Justice, is engaged in these types of activities. But again, I'm going to do what I need to do in order to ensure that I am following the law and continuing to say that I feel as though everything I did while I was director of the CIA was certainly consistent with my authorities and lawful and appropriate. I would have been derelict, and my colleagues at that time would have been derelict if we didn't expose Russian interference in the 2016 election.